Okay? Especially you get a big fish and you're horsing it. Fluorocarbon has more stretch to it, but not as much stretch as monofilament. Monofilament, I think, has too much stretch, and you can't get a real good hook set. This is still, you know, fairly good for hook sets, but it gives you. Since I've been using this, any spinner baits I've broken have usually been after I've caught about, you know, half a dozen big fish. I'm talking like 5-pound fish on it. Then it breaks. Right. But that's because smallmouth are really hard on. They bend them out of shape, and again, you can only bend a wire back and forth so many times, and it's going to break. But I've seen, when you're using braided line, I've seen it break, you know, on the first fish sometimes, without even having caught one before. So go to and if you even have problems with that, go to monofilament. I know lots of guys who still throw a monofilament. Fluorocarbon is very tough line. Okay, I only use I use 15 and 17-pound tests to throw spinner baits. I don't use any heavier, and I've never broken off a fish. I've never had any problems like that. So a few things that I like to do, and I'll show you why this spinner bait is different from some of the other ones you use. Okay.
Yeah, it's a new one.
We've got a lot of the weight behind the skirt here, so it looks a lot more compact. It doesn't look like that's a half-ounce spinner bait. Doesn't look like it. This one here is actually a 3/4 ounce spinner bait, but because all the weight's behind here, it looks more like a half-ounce spinner bait. So it's more compact. It uses a really sharp Mustad needlepoint hook, a brand new one. Obviously, you know, ball bearing swivel, but we've also welded this close, because I'm sure you've had your fight. You hit a fish hit, you miss it, and you come back and there's no blade on there. Anybody who throws spinnerbaits had that happen, so that's less likely to happen. We use stainless steel components, a little more unique bend to the wire to keep it from collapsing too much on itself. So I couldn't believe how good this spinnerbait was. In fact, I was very upset as I was losing prototypes, and after, like I said, after I've caught about, you know, half a dozen 5-pounders on it, one would break, and then I'm down to 2, and time was going fast.
Okay. 这个 spinner bait 可能大家每个人都在用。David 说他 spinner bait 以前好多年都不用了，但这个 spinner 是他帮助 design 的 ，design 他要 test。他test 的时候发现这 spinner bait 很好，就是在 Big Simcoe 呢6磅的小嘴都钓得过。之后呢，他就用 spinner bait 在 tournament 比赛中用5条冲锋鱼全是 spinner 钓的。spinner setup 呢，我们以前的 spinner 会断，主要是跟那个线有关系，用那个布线，所以他建议用 fluorocarbon 线。fluorocarbon 线呢，好处呢，它就是有 stretch， 布线没有 stretch， 布线没有弹性。这是 fluorocarbon 有点弹性，但它的弹性呢又没有那个 mono， 就是没有一般的塑料线大。一般塑料线呢弹性太大，你 set hook 的时候有时 set 不住。这个 fluorocarbon 呢，这个弹性又不是很大，所以 set hook 又很有力。所以它是一般到15磅到17磅的 fluorocarbon 线，这样的话呢有一定弹性，但是那个又不会掉，而且就是不会断掉。这个 fluorocarbon 就是 spinner bait 比较重，他刚刚说的这个呢，竟然有3/4盎司的重，就看起来就很小，就是像half ounce， 但里面就是它后面，因为 spinner bait 只有前面个头，它后面还有个重量，所以这个是比较特殊的，这后面比较重。
A couple of things I like to do with spinnerbaits. I always run a trailer hook on it. Only in the most extreme heavy weeds do you not run a trailer hook. I bet you probably 30 to 35% of the fish I catch on spinnerbait is only hooked on this hook. Okay, because sometimes the fish will come up and short strike at it, or sometimes they'll come up and they'll hit the blade. Okay, you still got you get a little more chance of hooking up with them like that. The other thing I like to do is I like to put some kind of plastic on the back. Okay, this happens to be a little swim bait from Exxon, a little mini swammer. Gives a little tail action in there behind, and also a little bit of contrast in the skirt there too. Okay, so those are little things you can fine tune your spinnerbaits and make them a little bit more effective. Now, a spinnerbait you can retrieve again so many different ways. You can simple as cast it out and just retrieve it in, and it catches fish like that. Okay, but what I really like to do is I like to cast it out as I'm retrieving it. I'll jerk it every now and then, like I'm fishing a jerk bait. Okay, what that does is that causes the blades to stop. They kind of clank against each other. And it's the same as when you throw a crankbait and you come along and it bounces against something. It's a triggering mechanism to get the fish to hit. Okay? It's not to say that if you just throw it out there and just retrieve it, you won't catch fish. But I think you can actually trigger hits and get more bites if you can, rather than just retrieving it straight, just every now and then, just give it a jerk, stop it, let it flutter a bit, and then start retrieving again. And you would trigger more hits that way.
这个 spinner bait 赛道说，它单位主要点用个 trailer hook， 这30%到50%的咬钩数是咬在后面 trailer hook 上。另外，它前面要加一个 plastic， 一般我们的 spinner bait 什么不加，它加一个塑料的 plastic 跟那个skirt 呢有一点对比，颜色呢有一些对比，这样可能就是对鱼更有吸引力。另外，它的presentation 的时候，一般的我们就扔出去 ，cast 就往回就收。他说在收的时候就是要借个收一段时间借个一下，就像接个背的。这个呢，在借个之前停了一下，这两个这个叶片啊，就是有个停顿，一张就对鱼很有吸引力，就是。
I know we're talking about bass, but anybody here like to fish for pike?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever have, when you're throwing a spinner bait for pike, which works really well, do you have any problem with this R bend? Trying to put a leader on there?
Yeah.
Because it slides up the arm, right?
就是用 spinner bait 钓 pike， 就是也是很好。
So you have a leader attached to it.
就前面加个 leader，pike 要咬的。
You see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, it could be a problem. Doesn't work so well. Simple solution. You take a little piece of air hose tubing or surgical tubing, cut a little strip off. You slip it over it beforehand. Now that. Okay.
What you can also use is a split ring.
A split ring. Slide it, split ring over it.
Yeah. O-ring.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
It's more expensive than the tube.
Yeah. You can go to the aquarium store, and buy a package of this tubing, and it'll last you a lifetime because it comes like probably 25 feet. You're only using a little bit at a time, right? You can also use it to attach your trailer boat too to keep it from coming off. And then this is sorry, Bear, go ahead.
钓 pike 的时候要加 leader 嘛，那前面说那个 leader 就很容易就是在这滑，知道吧？那怎么防止滑呢？它前面整个小塑料管儿，整个像气米芯似的，绞一小段，套在这上，再套了，就是固定在它，这样不用转了。这样的话就是钓 pike 为什么要这种 leader 呢 ？pike 只要它一口吞进去，如果是用那个布线啊或传中线，会把它咬断的，spinner bait 就丢掉了。要用那个 leader，钓 bass 不用 leader。